Okay, hello everyone. This is the community SIG cluster Lifecycle cluster API office hours on the 30th of March. We're biting to the CNCF code of conduct, so please be nice to each other. Please use the raise hand feature when you want to say something. If you have anything that you want to talk about, we still have a bit of space in our agenda here, so just add something at the bottom. You can add yourself to the attendee list if you want to. If you don't have access to the document, you can join the SIG cluster Lifecycle mailing list, and then you get automatic access. Okay, so let's get started. I would start with welcome new attendees, and then we go to the open proposal readouts. So if someone is new here and wants to introduce themselves, please go ahead. I'll wait a bit. You can just unmute yourself and talk.
Am I new? I'm not even sure. Hi, Bridget with Azure. Have been coming to the CAPZ meetings for a bit. Figured, hey, I'd come to the overall CAPI meeting and say hi. I see some familiar faces, possibly from other meetings I've been in earlier today.
Perfect. Welcome.
Hi, this is Pushkar. I hang around in the SIG security group, work for VMware, and was in a meeting last year, but then I dropped off, and this is my second meeting, I think. So looking forward to chatting with the rest of the group.
Welcome. Okay, then let's move ahead. Okay, open proposal readout. Does anyone want to talk about any of those proposals?
I can just a reminder that we have a lazy consensus on the runtime SDK at the end of this week.
Yep, that's that one. I maybe just add lazy consensus. 1st April. Yep, I have a similar short announcement. Just that last week I showed that topology mutation hook. Oh, sorry, Matt, you first.
Oh, yeah, just really quick, an update on machine pool machines. I think we're still getting pretty close to consensus, but Vince had some really good feedback yesterday about moving the fields to maybe to the provider status that I'm thinking about. And there's a few other things we noticed to catch. So still in progress, but I think we're very close to final, to declaring lazy consensus time. We'll see.
Okay, perfect. Good. Just one short note about the topology mutation that I showed last week. I just moved it to a PR. So I'm on PTO the next few weeks. So I just want to have it already as a PR so that folks can discuss there and make some progress. So if you have time, please take a look, and please take also a look at all those other proposals we have here if you have time and are interested, as usual. Fabrizio, I'm not sure if you mentioned that one at some point or if you want to.
Yeah, we talked briefly a couple of weeks ago, but
okay. Yeah, probably
the point is, yeah, quick TLDR. We know that there could be improvement in the for conditions, especially for conditions around workers, and so we tried to put together a status update that basically make a snapshot of the condition that we have today and discuss some idea. I also opened a WIP PR with a small bit of code where we can go and experiment about condition bubbling up to cluster, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Good. Then let's see. Okay, yeah. You already did that, or do you want to say more? No, that's fine. Okay, good. Then next up, Killian.
Hi, share?
Yep, do you want to share? Did I get it right?
Yeah, please.
Yep, perfect. Yeah. 1 second, I'll give you rights to do that. Okay, you should be now able to do that. And I'll stop sharing.
So by way of introduction, this is a lead on from the proposal, the runtime SDK proposal. There's a proposal that's still a work in progress, but we should be putting it out there sometime over the next week in Google Doc form to start off with. So this is an initial set of runtime hooks based on the runtime SDK. So obviously we're waiting for that proposal to merge first. And these are designed to enable add-on management based on cluster lifecycle events. So the idea here is that these are a series of hooks. There's 6 in all. This graphic just shows when they occur. So down at the bottom, we have the hook calls. So we've got one before cluster create, after the control plane is initialized, before the cluster upgrades, after the cluster, or after the control plane upgrade is finished, after the whole cluster upgrade is finished, and then before deleting the cluster. And these are designed to enable some of the more advanced add-on use cases that we've seen, that we're sort of using things like cluster resource set at the moment, but we don't have enough insight into the actual cluster lifecycle to manage things intelligently. So knowing when the control plane is being upgraded, those sorts of things. And these hooks are going to be hopefully a solution to allowing add-on management based on the cluster lifecycle. So yeah, I just wanted to give a brief overlook and tell people to expect this to be posted in the channel. I guess following on like the other proposals, we'll do a run of Google Docs reviews first. And then once we have something that most people seem happy with, we'll move it to a PR. So yeah, we'll be posting this in the channel hopefully sometime over the next week.
Okay. Any comments? Otherwise, yeah, Cecile.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's the relationship between this proposal and the proposal that Fabrizio had in progress for add-on management using external package managers? Or
Yeah, so there is a relationship between them, but they don't rely on each other in any way. So this proposal doesn't define any systems or patterns for actual add-on management. It just defines the lifecycle hooks that could be used for add-on management. The proposal for add-on management, the other one, I'm not that familiar with the ins and outs of it, but it's not runtime SDK. It's more about patterns for actually doing add-on management with Cluster API.
Okay, Fabrizio, if that question was answered. Yep, then Fabrizio.
Yeah, just a quick comment. So Killian answered. So there is a lazy relation. So we can implement add-on orchestration with or without the proposal. But if we have these runtime hooks, we have, let me say, more tool in our hands. A second comment is that these runtime hooks are pretty generic. So they can be used also for other use case different than add-on management. We kind of scoped down the proposal to, okay, let's look at what we need for add-on management, and we design input and output parameter given this use case. But we recognize that in future we can, yeah, there could be different use case for before upgrade, after upgrade, so on and so forth. And so in the follow-up iteration, we will be, of course, we will consider to expand the implementation to better support all these use cases.
Check.
Yeah, I was actually, thanks Fabrizio. I was going to ask about the general usage of these runtime hooks. So it sounds like that is top of mind for folks. Maybe just a suggestion, maybe we could kind of reclassify this proposal along those generic lines so it doesn't seem to suggest that we're working on 2 add-on solutions in parallel, because it is sort of confusing. And maybe that would help tighten up the way the spec actually evolves if we think about it from a generic point of view, like just generic runtime hooks. I'm not sure exactly how to sort of produce 3 or 4 use cases apart from add-ons. But if it really is just for add-ons, then I don't know, it seems like maybe it should be a part of the add-on proposal itself and not a separate proposal. Does that make sense?
Who wants to answer? Either Killian or Fabrizio, I guess.
I can answer. So it kind of makes sense. So we went back and forth around this. So the reason why we named the proposal around the lifecycle hooks for add-on management is that you know, when you think at the lifecycle hooks, there are many. Like for instance, why we don't have a before machine deployment upgrade or after machine deployment upgrade, so we were looking for a reason to scope down to an initial set of hooks that make sense, is already consistent, but it is also limited, so we can act. And so the idea is that, okay, let's start one hot topic in the community, which is add-on management. And so this is why we get there, but I agree that we can work a little bit on wording in order to make it more evident that these things are also generics, can be used in another way.
Well,
thank you for the
that makes sense. I mean, we don't want to spend months thrashing over abstraction, so it makes sense.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, I think it becomes a little bit more clear when the document itself is out, because we stated some more details, of course, in goals and non-goals, etc. But that wasn't visible up until now, of course. Okay. Any other questions about that? Otherwise, I would move to the next topic. Okay, good. Then Pushkar.
Yes. Can I share screen so it might be easier
sure.
for everyone?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Just give you a co-host. Yep, should work now.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let me know if the font is too small or big.
Looks good to me.
Looks good. Okay.
Looks good.
Perfect. Yeah. So first, I think some context for folks who haven't been involved very closely. We started this self-assessment as in almost 6-7 months ago now, and Nadir, Ankita, me, and one or two more people from SIG Security were involved in it. The idea was, instead of waiting for a third-party audit to happen like we had for Kubernetes, and we're going to have another one for Kubernetes this year, but the scope is very limited. So as a result of that, we thought, let's try to do a community review instead of waiting for somebody to fund it from CNCF. And we have prior work and prior art on this, where CNCF tax security has done reviews like this for different projects, but we never really did a review for sub projects of a graduated project like cluster API in Kubernetes. So we followed some of the templates, we learned few things and came up with our own methods and processes that work. And the end result is basically, after a lot of help from everyone in cluster lifecycle and SIG security, is this PR that's open. So we have a bunch of diagrams as is typical in a threat model. And then I think this is the main document. So it's sort of long, big, huge document. So I'll use my favorite hack to open the online editor on GitHub, which makes it easier to render Markdown. Shout out to all the Microsoft and GitHub folks on the call. I really like this feature. So now if you see here, and I think this is the one for rendering. Yeah. So this is a big document, but what I really need help from everyone in the call, if they have some time, is this is some metadata, the project overview. This will be all very familiar information for most of you. And then there are some diagrams and flows that we had put in scope. And then at the somewhere in the middle of the document, you'll start seeing threat modeling, which tried. So we divided all the threats into different categories, and all of them are listed. And for each of them, if you notice, I'll just take one example here. So status. So for all the threats, we have a status field. And so far, we have answers for some of the threads, but as we scroll down more and more, we weren't able to get a confirmed answer on whether we plan to implement it or have we already planned to implement it, or is it something like an end user guidance that we want to add. So this is where I would need help from everyone. Basically, if you can add a comment like this here saying, yes, I know this is implemented, this is the link to the PR, or this is planned to be implemented, this is the issue. I think that would really help. And then I'll keep this maybe open for a couple of weeks or so. And if I, based on the comments I get, I'm thinking me and some other folks in SIG security could start creating issues on cluster API repo for all of these threads. So one thread, one issue, and then all of you can kind of help me triage whether that makes sense to be implemented, what would be the milestone, so on and so forth. So a lot of information, but I'll pause for questions.
Fabrizio?
So first of all, thanks for the work. It seems yeah, an impressive work. Thank you very much. I will try to go through the issue and provide comments. But generally, I agree that the way forward is that we should basically transform activities into issue in our backlog and try to get them into the business as usual.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I just didn't want to start creating a lot of spam where there are multiple issues created by me, and then we end up finding out many of them are duplicates. So if there is a chance we can reduce the number of issues that we know need to be implemented, then I'll just create those instead of all of them.
Yeah, of course. This makes really sense. I will try to make a pass and as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks a lot. And any in general feedback from everyone about the assessment, the content is welcome. We've never really done this before. So any feedback you give for the process itself also will help other sub projects when we do it for future sub projects.
Okay. Did you also want to say something about? Oh, that was sorry. I kind of mixed up the topic. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Yeah, Joe.
So I had a question on behalf of my colleague, Paul. So we have the Oracle Cluster API provider, and just curious how we go about getting like a user support channel in Slack and the Kubernetes Slack space.
Who can answer that? I don't really remember what we did last time. I know there's some documentation and CloudStack just did it, but Fabrizio.
Yeah, I can search for it, but the process is open a PR, if I remember, in Kubernetes org, and then they will create a channel for you. So I will search for the link.
Cecile posted.
I see Cecile posted the doc. Thanks, Cecile.
Thank you.
Yeah, it might be that you need some approval from maybe SIG leads or something. But yeah, I would say take a look at the document and just come back and ask in the channel or something if you have questions.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Okay, then next up, Fabrizio.
Yeah, so quick update. Last week we talked about an issue that happens with cluster class and managed topologies when you have a template, which is co-authored by the cluster class itself, so by the template defining the link to the cluster class and by the controller. And the issue happened when the co-authored part is within the same list. The example is subnet, bring your subnet in Kappa. So current status is that I'm starting to investigate how to fix it. but this will take some time, and probably it will require also a change in the API from the provider to add the annotation for the basically for specifying that this is a list that should be treated as a map, and which are the key, like for server-side apply, the same annotation used for server-side apply. So given that the fix will take some time to be developed and tested, I'm also going to document this as a known issue for the latest release.
Comments, concerns, questions for details? Okay, then I think we're done. Oh, I'm not sure if we actually did it. Fabrizio, how was that last point meant? Just like, hey, if anyone has feedback about our APIs, what is wrong with them? Add a note, or just like, I don't know, spontaneously?
I don't know if this was a good idea or not, but we had a meeting some time ago about provider, standardization provider, and we just faced the fact that sometimes we don't have a good occasion to discuss, I don't know, limits to the contract, how we can improve the contract for the provider, stuff like that. And so we decided, instead of creating a new meeting, let's add a new session on the agenda, but it seems that it is not working. So we can also drop in and keep the new one until we understand if there are topics, or if we need another meetings, or how to proceed with this one.
Sissy?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest maybe since we have, provider folks usually joining this meeting anyway, maybe we could, if we have time at the end of the meeting, try to do a quick round robin and see if, someone from each provider has updates or any current blockers that they're working through, and just, quickly go through the providers and bring up what are current highlights and lowlights of the week. That could be one way of doing it.
Okay, I see general agreement of it. Yeah, so I guess why not? A good chance and also to address some issues that providers find. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to give some support to what Cecile was saying. In the SIG cloud provider, they do something very similar. I mean, that meeting is kind of a different focus, but they have basically like a list of all the providers that are creating CCMs, and then they kind of go through and do updates from there. Kind of dovetailing on what Cecile was saying, it might be the kind of thing where we could put a section in the agenda, and then any providers could put provider specific topics they might want to talk about, and then that might make it easier for us in the actual meetings or something.
Yeah. Could it be that we had something like that 1 or 2 years ago? I remember something.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, why not? So we can just start with putting a list there of, I guess, the reference is something like our provider list in the book also.
I think it's a good topic, just so that if providers are having really big issues, they have a good way to kind of bring them up. I mean, I guess they already do, but
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if someone spontaneously from some provider wants to showcase what's going on, we can do it now. Otherwise, we will start next week. Sissy?
I will volunteer to update that agenda item in the template and encourage providers to write their name if they want to share an update.
Yep, perfect. Didn't understand. Would you do that, or?
yeah, Bridget put a nice example from today's SIG Cloud provider meeting in the chat too. I mean, granted, SIG Cloud Provider is much more focused on just looking at each cloud provider, but similar pattern might be followed here.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're probably up to, I don't know how many. That's not the provider list. Okay, can't find a list. But there's a provider list somewhere in the book. I will just take that one and then team. Okay, good. Then I'll update the document for next time.
One nice thing SIG Cloud Provider does that we could consider too is because that is seated in the agenda for each meeting, as you're prepping for the meeting, even if you're not going to be there, you can add your little bullet point if you want, or add it during the meeting, either way.
Yep, that makes no sense. I'll add some description text around that point. Okay, perfect. Any other comments about that or other last minute topics? Okay, then I think we are done for today. Have a nice week, everyone, and see you next week.
Thanks, Stefan.
Yeah, no problem. Bye-bye.